Hello and welcome to another episode of the Agency Leadership Podcast. I'm Chip Griffin.
And I'm Gini Dietrich.
And you're going to have to wait to hear what we have to say today.
But only for a couple of seconds. You'll have to wait.
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of busy, Ginny. So let me get back to you here. I gotta do a few things over here.
Hey, I just noticed we match. I didn't even notice that. I've been talking to you for half an hour and I didn't even notice. We are very well complemented in our color scheme today.
Well, clearly you're a fashion consultant. Talk to my fashion consultant. Yeah, no. My fashion consultant is Amazon. What's the cheapest shirt I can find?
In a multitude of colors.
It horrifies some of my clients that I have that level of fashion sense.
I know you have a client that, does not appreciate that at all.
Does not. And that's, hey, it is what it is.
I love it.
Am who I am. And I'll be honest with you, I've become even cheaper here during the pandemic era because I don't see anyone in person. And so video cameras cover up all sorts of, like you can't tell that the quality of the fabric isn't that great. Mm-mm. So who cares, right? I mean, I just don't care anymore, Ginny.
Do you have them in rainbow colors? And are they rainbow situated in your closet? That's what I really want to know.
I have actually started to standardize on just getting identical shirts. So to make my life easier. So
Steve Jobs was black and you're blue.
Yes. Well, I think blue is probably the color that works best on me. I mean, the pasty white guy with no hair, it's difficult to sort of come up with a color that works. No hair. That's true. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't think I can pull off the black thing.
I think you could do red.
See, I Orange. Think the red then makes me look a little too red. Plus, I got the bricks in the back.
Fair, that's true.
Nobody really cares about this. But we've done a successful job of illustrating our point. We have illustrated the point inadvertently of making you wait, because that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about wait lists, because I know, particularly right now, as a lot of agencies are growing quickly, I would say coming out of the pandemic, but
we're not coming out of it at all.
In the current stage of the economy, whatever we want to think of it as, they're growing quickly. And they're having trouble hiring because it is definitely a talent-friendly market at the moment. Yeah. And so there's a resource constraint. So the question is, should you deal with this as an agency by putting potential clients or prospective clients or future clients on a wait list?
So I go back and forth on this one because I think there's something to be said for not being available immediately. And I always liken this to a really good hairdresser. You cannot call today and get an appointment with a really good hairdresser tomorrow or 2 weeks from now. You're usually 6 to 8 weeks out. And that depends on the time of the year. If it's around Christmas time, you're screwed if you don't already have an appointment before Christmas. You just don't get in. So I think about it from that perspective.
I wouldn't know.
Well, right. But I do, because I have a lot.
Sure.
Of hair, a lot. See, Mr. Wife here. But it's true. You can't. So in order to see that really good hairdresser, you know that you have to make an appointment for the next time when you're at the salon, and you have to make the appointment for Christmas time, probably 6 months in advance, which is what I do just to make sure I have the appointment. And I'm okay with that because I know that that's the way it is. And I sort of feel that way about some of the work that we do. Like if somebody wants to have a Zoom meeting with me next week, I can't do it. And I probably can't do it in 2 weeks. I can do it in 3, but I can't there's no way I could carve out an hour right in the next 2 weeks because I'm already packed, right? So I think about it from that perspective. At the same time.
Be honest, if it was good enough, you'd drop this recording like a hot potato.
I don't know that I would, actually.
Wow. I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing, but anyway.
I don't know if I would.
Pray proceed.
Anyway, but on the flip side, I recently, as a client, had an experience where I hired an agency and they said, we can't do any work with you for 2.5 months. And I was like, but I need somebody right now. And they're like, we can't. literally can't do anything with you for 2.5 months. And I was like, well, crap. And they made me sign a contract so that to reserve the time for 2.5 months later, which I ended up doing. And I ended up going through the process and everything, but I was annoyed as crap about it. So I go back and forth about the whole making clients waitlist topic.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm surprised by that. No.
I know. I tend to be so on the one hand, on the other. I mean, I know we finish the show every time with "it depends," but it doesn't depend. Look, I don't like wait lists, Sam. I am. They really irritate me. I don't think they're a good experience for either the agency or the client. Now, I'm talking about an actual wait list, something like what you've described. I think if it's I can't have a call with you next week, it's going to be 2 weeks. That's not really a wait list. That's just a scheduling issue, right? And so, there's a bit of semantics here. I don't think you should drop everything to just jump into whatever new client comes along at the expense of all your existing work. That's crazy.
Yep.
And I think that when possible, if you've got a good fit client, you shouldn't turn them away if you can avoid it, right? You should try to find some way to accommodate them, but you can't do it in such a way that it diminishes the quality of the work that you're doing for them or for your existing clients. If you can't do that, if you can't accommodate it in some fashion, then I think it's better to simply say, we don't have availability right now. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I'd really like to help you, but I'm going to help refer you to someone else. Because most people don't come to an agency with a problem that can really be pushed off 3 or 6 months or something like that. And so to me, it almost comes across as arrogant on the part of the agency to say, we're just, we're too busy for you. We're too busy for you. I just don't like it.
Do you think also that it depends on the agency? Like for my agency, I think that comes across as arrogant, but for a web design agency, maybe that's true. Like we can't build any new websites in the next 60 days. And that's just the fact of the matter, because we don't have the developers, we don't have the whatever it happens to be, we don't have the designers. But if we get through the next 60 days, we can then take you on. So maybe it depends.
But I guess so. Yeah. So I mean, and part of this too is the whole semantics around waitlist. I think too, because different agencies use that terminology differently. So I'm still thinking of what you're describing as more akin to just scheduling, right? And so in those cases, I would still onboard the client. Right. So if I'm doing that, I'm not building their website, and I can't give them deliverables for sure. I would still start the onboarding process. I wouldn't simply say, sign a contract, see you in 2.5 months. Right. I would at least get the ball rolling, because in a website build, I used to do a lot of this work. A lot of the early work is actually on the client side.
That's true.
Right. So why wouldn't you do the necessary kickoff type things, which generally only require a few hours of your agency's time? You then put the ball in the client's court to start providing you with information and feedback and, lookbook type stuff and all that kind of, there's a lot of steps in that process. So you can manage your schedule such that you're setting the expectation that the deliverables are going to take 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever. But it's not simply saying, you're on a wait list, because the way some agencies are using wait lists right now is more like when you go to a restaurant and you just put your name on the seating list.
And you wait
right?
until,
Right. So to me, there is a difference between putting your name on the list when you show up at the restaurant and having a reservation for 9 o'clock. Right?
Yeah, fair.
Right?
Okay.
So those are two different things. One is scheduling when it works, and that's a sane judgment that both parties can make. Is this realistic? The problem is when you just say, I'm too busy now. I don't know exactly when. I'm in the process of hiring. I'm trying to do whatever. I'm trying to free up bandwidth. So I'll put you on my wait list and I'll come back to you. Right? It's those indefinite ones that are the ones that to me, it doesn't depend. There's just no good reason to do that kind of thing. If it really is scheduling, and you can say, I've got the time 2 months from now, and I'm going to book you for that, that's fine, right? I mean, I do that with my coaching right now. If I'm doing an agency business checkup, which is basically my audit program, yeah, I mean, that may be scheduled 3, 4, 6 weeks out, depending upon what else I've got going, because it requires a dedicated focus for a period of time that does require some scheduling nimbleness to get to. So it really does come down to how you're defining the terminology here to understand, I think, what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, you're actually reminding me, I'm having my closets redone upstairs, and we went through the whole process, like all this stuff, not the build, but like the design and, picking out all the accessories and everything, and then getting everything final with the architect, and then signing the contract and paying a deposit. But my closets won't actually be built until November. So I have this whole time frame, which kind of sucks, but that's just how it is, right? So they did, as you're talking about that, they did go through the initial stuff. Like we did figure out with the architect what it could look like and how we could redo things. And then once we figured that out, what kind of shelving and rods and blah, 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 all the accessories I want, built all that out. And then now I just have to wait because they're booked. They're booked. So,
right. And so okay. from their perspective, they've got you more bought into the process
Absolutely.
right now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, even signing a contract, and we've talked on the show many times in the past how contracts really aren't worth the paper they're printed on 9 times out of 10. Whatever, getting them involved by starting to provide information, they're now locked in more. So from the agency perspective, to me, it's beneficial because you've got them invested enough that they're likely to continue waiting it out. Whereas if it's just some sort of a verbal commitment or even a signed contract, they're more likely to come up with a reason why circumstances have changed, or they found someone's nephew who can build the website for them, and speed mattered more, right? So, I think there are a lot of ways that you can address these things from a scheduling perspective as an agency, from an expectation setting aspect of an agency, getting little bits and pieces started. But the other thing is, if you're an agency, you should be thinking about how you can flex your ability to service clients up and down as necessary. So having that mixed model that we've talked about before, where you have a mixture of contractors, freelancers, as well as in-house employees, full-time employees, part-time, whatever, that gives you the ability, particularly if you've built up a good freelancer network, to hopefully start moving some of these other projects along so that you don't have to put someone on a 3-month wait list or a 6-month wait list or something like that, which is, even when the client goes along with it, just as you've described, you get kind of irritated, right?
For sure, yeah.
So
absolutely.
Is that really how you want to start the relationship with the client, that they have, while they're looking forward to working with you, they've also got a little bit of an irritation, right? It's like when I go to that restaurant that doesn't take reservations, which frankly, I mean, obviously these days I don't do that kind of stuff at all, but even pre-pandemic, I hit a point in my life, when I was about 24, and I'm like, screw this, I'm not waiting in lines anymore for restaurants. If you don't take a reservation, you're not good enough that it matters to me, right? I can go get a good meal somewhere else. So, and people will be the same way, right? So, you don't want to create that feeling of irritation, because it's just going to mean that they're going to, in all likelihood, expect snappier service when they actually do come on board, right? Because I had to wait all this time. Like when you wait 2 hours for your table and then you sit down and it takes them 20 minutes to bring your drink order, you're even more irritated, right?
Yes.
You're like, I waited. Yes. I sat out here in the 95-degree humid weather for this table, and now I sit down and you can't even get me a glass of water. And if you're an agency, give your clients a glass of water. For God's sakes, get it right on the table.
I'm dying. I think okay. I think there is one small challenge, especially right now, and it's something that you brought up earlier, which is there aren't people to do the work right now. In freelancer network or not, everyone is at capacity, everyone. And that's the challenge that we face. Like, I had somebody call me yesterday and she's like, we really want to do this with you, even though we've been talking since January, which kind of drives me crazy. can we get started at the end of the month? And I was like, no, like we can't. I'm sorry.
Right.
So actually, as you're talking, I'm thinking through, because you know, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, that we always start with a 2-day strategy session. We're doing it on Zoom now, right? But we always start with that, where we get really in depth in a client's business. And we honestly and truly, we don't have the capacity to be able to do that before October right now. So in many cases, I am turning the business away and helping people find another agency, just because we don't have the capacity to do it. And my team is fully utilized, which is a problem. And our freelancer network is as well. So I think you also have to make a decision as a business owner. Can you move things around to accommodate, or do you have to refer them to a peer?
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. See, this is the problem is that when you're an agency, if you start getting greedy and you take the idea that you don't want to turn business away to an extreme, and you do absolutely anything you can to capture that business. And we usually think of that in terms of, you just say yes when you should have said no in the moment.
Right.
But wait lists are just the other extreme of that, right? You're saying yes, but it's an open-ended yes, and we don't know when. But in your case, you can. To me, again, it's not so much a wait list as the scheduling. Look, we can. The kickoff process requires our 2-day intensive. Right now we're booking those in October, and if that works, great. That's not so much a wait list, that's scheduling.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair. Okay.
And,
all right.
and if it doesn't, then you should absolutely be happy to help them find another solution.
For sure.
Because that is better for your reputation.
Yes.
It is better for your reputation to say no to someone and help them find an alternate solution than it is to say yes and give them a bad experience.
Yes.
And
100%.
to me, an open-ended, throw you on the wait list, get to you when I can, that is a bad client experience from the get-go, and that is not how you want to get started.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Even when you're bought in at the start, you are irritated by having to wait, for sure.
Right, and your expectations go higher.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's
It must be so good. It must be.
Yeah.
So do I win this round? Huh?
You win this round. Like
yes.
I 100% hear what you're saying. And I agree with you on the telling somebody they have to wait. We're happy to take your business, but we can't do anything with you for 90 days. That's, as somebody who has experienced that, it is not fun. And you're right. You do expect you expect better service because of it. And then when somebody makes a mistake, you're like, to your point, I don't even have my glass of water yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And look, if you tell them, look, we can't do this until X date, it gives them the opportunity to decide whether, they think that meal is going to be so good they're willing to wait for it.
Right.
Right. But it's not putting them in that uneasy position of having to sort of agree to some open-ended hangout, wait to see what happens.
Yeah. And you're right. For most of us, for most agencies, when a prospect comes to you, it's because they have a need right now. They don't have a need 90 days from now. They have a need right now.
They probably had it 90 days ago.
Fair.
because most people wait too long to come to an agency, which we could have a whole separate conversation about, right? But generally speaking, by the time someone goes out and actually hires an agency, they are behind the 8 ball to begin with, because they either didn't have the bandwidth internally to do it, they didn't have the talent to do it internally, and they found out the hard way. Particularly these days, because it's so easy to think you can just DIY agency work, right? I mean, how many times have you dealt with a client who tried to DIY it, screwed it up, and came to you, right? I mean, it's like, if you're a plumber or an electrician, you get a lot of calls because, someone like me sat in there and said, well, I can rewire that light switch.
I watched a YouTube video, no problem.
Yeah. And then I saw the smoke, and I'm like, maybe I should call a professional and see if maybe you might know more than I do. And,
somehow this does not surprise me about you.
This is, by the way, just for the record, that has never, ever happened.
That you've burned something down, or?
No. I have never burned something down, and I don't think I've ever screwed up and had to call an electrician. I have, from time to time, I've tried to do projects and realized very quickly that I couldn't, and so I called. I mean, like I had a problem with my dryer vent not too long ago, and I'm like, there's way too much work to try to sort out all of the bends and curves that were in this thing when we moved in, and so I'm like, you know what, I'm not even going to mess with it because we have a gas dryer, and I don't want carbon monoxide coming into the house if I screw it up. So, but I didn't. I didn't I mean, I didn't wait until the carbon monoxide detector went off. Some people do that. And a lot of people do that before they come and hire an agency. They are letting carbon monoxide into their building before they call the agency to solve the problem for them.
Yes.
So. Yes. and ultimately, business development for an agency is about matchmaking. It's not about sales. It's not about closing. It's matchmaking. It's trying to figure out, is their need a match for what you're providing as an agency? And that includes when you can provide it. And if it's not, you should help make a match somewhere else. Because they will remember that you helped them out when they needed it.
Yep.
Make sure you're giving them a good referral. Right. Don't send them somewhere where maybe they will, maybe they won't get the service they need, right? It's better in that case to not make a referral and say, I don't really have a solution for you. I can tell you what questions to ask. I would still try to give them some sort of a gentle blow off, where you're helping provide some resources for them to make their next decision. Mm-hmm. But I think that the open-ended waitlist concept I think it falls down, and I think it doesn't fulfill that need as a matchmaker and being of service to your client and all that kind of thing. If they say, I don't care how long I wait, okay, cool, fine. I can guarantee you most clients aren't going to say that. Most clients are not going to say to you, I mean, unless, of course, you're Gini Dietrich. I mean, I'm sure people say, whatever it takes for me to work with Gini Dietrich, 2 years from now, that's fine. That's fine.
Not true. All right, you win this one. I agree. Waitlists suck.
All right. And so with that, we will keep you waiting no longer for the end of this episode. I am Chip Griffin.
And I'm Gini Dietrich.
And it depends. Thank you for listening to the Agency Leadership Podcast. You can watch or listen to every episode by visiting agencyleadershippodcast.com. The Agency Leadership Podcast is distributed on the FIR Podcast Network. Just visit www.firpodcastnetwork.com. We welcome your feedback and suggestions and look forward to being back with you again next week.